In the heart of this great city, we saw tragedy arrive on a quiet morning. September the 11th. September the 11th. September the 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th, 2001.
Saddam Hussein.
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 War and danger.
Continuing danger.
Hour of danger.
Very, very dangerous world.
A grave new threat.
Horrific acts of atrocities.
Murderous regimes.
Dedicating to killing us.
Tyranny and terror.
Slaughtered thousands.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons programs.
The deadliest of weapons.
Terrible weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
Poison gas.
Torture chambers.
Mass graves.
Deadly technologies.
Radical ideology of hate.
Terror of threats.
Terror.
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 War on terrorism.
War against terrorism.
Global war on terror.
Global terrorism. 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 Global terrorism.
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 Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism.
The evil terrorists. 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 Terrorists.
Terrorist, 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 terrorist.
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 Terrorist. Terrorist.
Terrorists, 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 terrorists.
On the morning of September 11, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York, while in Washington a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-Tech, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her, and her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet, employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about...
His hip could be seen to move violently forward.
And...
They took the babies out of the incubators.
And...
Mobile production facilities.
And...
The rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit paranoid tinfoil dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, NSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
Number 4, perhaps the most vital directive in Weishaupt's plan was to obtain absolute control of the press, at that time the only mass communications media, to distribute information to the public, so that all news and information could be slanted, so that the masses could be convinced that a one-world government is the only solution to our many and varied problems. Now do you know who owns and controls our mass communications media? I'll tell you, practically all the movie lots in Hollywood is owned by the Lehmans, Kuhn Loeb and Company, Goldman Sachs, and other internationalist bankers. All the national radio and TV channels in the nation are owned and controlled by those same internationalist bankers. The same is true of every chain of metropolitan newspapers and magazines, also of the press wire services, such as Associated Press, United Press International, etc. The supposed heads of all those media are merely the fronts for the internationalist bankers, who in turn compose the hierarchy of the CFR, today's Illuminati in America. Now can you understand why the Pentagon's press agent Sylvester so brazenly proclaimed that the government has the right to lie to the people? What he really meant was that our CFR-controlled government had the power to lie to and be believed by the brainwashed American people.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to two American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
And one of the biggest arguments against conspiracy theorists goes like this. If your conspiracy is true, they would have said it on the news. Oh, precious parakeet, you see, you don't understand. You do not know what they do with the news. See, the news is fake. What you're seeing is scripted. It's as if all of them are reading off the same teleprompter. Don't you understand? You will not ever get the real information because they block it out. They're not giving you specific information, unique information. And if they do venture off to the side it's still approved from the boys on top because they have to sell you the New World Order agenda. You're saying, oh, this sounds like a conspiracy you're telling me right now. I know, precious parakeet. Your mama done kept you in the basement too long. Your daddy kept you in the cage. You didn't get to see about the real world, but I am going to show you.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, right? Especially when you got a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is
Wow.
priceless, especially on their birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless.
This is your
especially on a
news.
birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially when it comes to their birthdays.
Absolutely. A child's happiness
Absolutely.
is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless,
Especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's smile is priceless.
Look at her, and she couldn't even get it right. Girl, it's right in front of your face. Read it at least right. Come on now.
Priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
You know, a child's happiness is
And look at him. He just took it and ran with it. He made it his own. Come on.
priceless, especially on birthdays.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
So what did you learn from that? A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday? No, no, no. It's fake. It's not a coincidence. All those people saying the same thing. But maybe you need to see more.
Like that?
Well, it's one of the most recognized snack cakes, but now the Twinkie may be in trouble.
Could the Hostess Twinkie be in trouble?
The Twinkie could be in trouble.
Could be.
Trouble for the Twinkie?
Trouble for the Twinkie.
Twinkie trouble.
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 Twinkie trouble. Twinkie trouble. Trouble in Twinkie land.
Yeah, Twinkie Land ain't the only one in trouble. Look like we got a problem here. Fake news and people believing it? Jeez, y'all really tripping with this. Why you believe this stuff? It's fake.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says,
Yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers
This
says,
is
yeah,
even
baby.
important
Mike
news.
Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers
Yeah, baby. Hot mess.
says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers 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 says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Did I say that right?
Yeah, say it right.
Yeah, you said it right.
Guys, you cannot believe everything you see on TV. I put this short video together here, right here. I did this with cheap camera equipment, my home computer, and about $1,500 worth of off-the-shelf software. This guy was not wearing a tuxedo, so I put one on him. We were sitting in my car with a green screen, talking, and then I simulated us getting into a car wreck. This is a custom animation that I made. I went to Google, found an image of a cockpit, and made the cockpit to the animation I created to make a jet flying through the clouds. And we got our friend Walter to sit in my living room, and I told him just to follow my hand. Watch my hand, Walter. Then I put him inside the cockpit with a heads-up display like Iron Man. Even changed the lighting.
General who had never flown a jet before in his life is literally being programmed with the experience of air-to-air combat right before your eyes.
Don't believe it just because you saw it on TV, because they have a lot better equipment and a lot more money.
We have cinema quality HD cameras, cinema quality HD lenses, an extensive lighting system with dimmers, a sophisticated audio system and gear, and everything else you're likely to need, on site and ready to go. Do elite quality green screen production from our huge 3-walled pre-lit cyclorama and put our amazing Ultimat 11 HD chroma keyer to work. Or, better yet, use our HD 3D virtual studio system. along with our industry-leading Encodicam and coded camera crane, and save hundreds of thousands of dollars on set construction costs alone. In fact, our set designer also designed sets for NBC, CNBC, and CNN.
You cannot believe what you're seeing on TV. They are using it as a weapon against you and convincing you to enslave yourself by the things that they're showing us. You need to start questioning things.
Take a look at this. This is a headline from the Drudge Report called Syria Shock. And when you click on that link, it brings you to the Mail Online, and we see horrific headlines and pictures and videos about what has happened. Look at that, mass graves that has happened in Syria. And this is all over the place. It is all over the news. But then the question is, did it really happen? Did people really die? Are there mass graves? To answer that, take a look at this video, allegedly shot in Syria or Egypt, not quite sure, but watch this. Now, as you can see, there are what seem like a group of protesters who have been cued to run and then take positions and to freeze and pause. And they're doing this because they're actors. Take a look at this photographer right here. See that? He's taking pictures that shows up here in the news. It makes it look like people are dying from horrible genocidal attacks from the government. But nothing could be further from the truth. Look at this. They're actors. The people in the vests are the ones who coordinate the action. Look at this. Flags waving, peace signs, but everyone's frozen. They're actors. Now, if you followed my videos or my audios on my blog, you know that I've shown that throughout our history, this is what's been really going on. Not 9/11s, not Oklahoma Cities, not Waco scenarios. Even the O.J. Simpson case was very much likely an acting job. So what I always do is I would point people to this movie called Pallywood. Let me move it back to the beginning here. And this shows how 60 Minutes, and they do this all of the time, literally scripted and staged the current Israeli and Palestinian attacks. And as you can see, it looks very scary. Here's the 60-minute logo right there. We've got people throwing stuff. We got fire bombs. We have people shooting, people holding up protest flags, shooting through buildings, and on it goes. And it looks very real. A guy gets shot in the leg, he's down. But let's take a really close look at that one. I've saved that right here. Here's the same video. What you want to do is you want to pay attention to this guy right here in the blue shirt. And then you want to pay attention to what happens here. You're going to see an ambulance come here. And watch how fast the ambulance comes as soon as he gets shot. So it gets shot right there. No blood, of course. There's never blood in the acting. And within 2 seconds, the ambulance shows up and hurls him back into the back of the ambulance, which, of course, you would never do if it was a real injury. So watch this again in slow motion. Gets shot, holds his leg, no blood coming out of the leg. Less than 2 seconds later, an ambulance shows up. That is called acting. Now, you don't have to use real actors to pull off these psychological operations. Take a look at this. Her name is Emily. But is Emily a real person? Well, in about 30 seconds, you're going to find out she's not. She's completely CGI. So let me zoom it up a little bit here. See that? This is completely created and it's not even advanced on a computer system, much like Photoshop, but for video. And if that doesn't really make you go, wow, this is probably the most realistic CGI I've ever seen in my life. Take a look at this. Look at the blinking of the eyebrows and of the eyes and the shadows of the double chin. This kind of gives it away over here. The background's kind of really does show that it's CGI, but you show this to 100 people and 100 people are going to think this is a real person. Look at the eyes. Just amazing. Now, you don't have to have just people who are faked. You can have objects that are faked. In fact, I have a quote from the person who created this CGI. He says, "Yep, it's all CG. I tried to put some live footage shots, but I ran out of time, so CGI did the trick." Look at those lemons. All CGI. And I saved the best for last. This is from, I don't know if it's a movie studio. It's called Stargate Studios. And it shows quite clearly how movies are made on a computer. You don't even have to have the actors show up. Basically, everything is done on a computer and green screen. So you can literally go to a backlot. You don't have to go to Hollywood or Toronto or overseas. You can do it right in a soundstage. And a lot of the most well-known movies that you have seen have been done using this method. So if they can fake it this way, can you imagine the things that they're faking on us? I mean, it's to the point right now where even people like us who look into fakery can't tell it's faked anymore because it's so good. It's so hard to find. So you're probably freaking out right now. You're like, wait a minute. Are you saying that everything that we see on TV is fake? I'm saying pretty much a lot of the stuff that you see on TV is fake, especially if it's on national TV, especially if you see one story that's in every newspaper and on TV and talked about in the radio, and they're hammering that point home over and over and over again. That's called psychic driving, repetition. So if you see that, I would be skeptical. And then you're going to be asking yourself, well, why would they do it? What are they trying to do here? And it's very simple. Let's go back to the original start of this video. Syria shock. There have been many documents that have been published that talk about how we would go to war with Iraq and then Iran and Syria. And sure enough, we have all this stuff setting the stage for that sort of thing to happen. Now, will it happen?
So my name's Robbie Parker. My family is one of the families that lost a child yesterday in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings here in Connecticut.
Robbie Parker, I assume he's going to come out to the microphones now and make a statement. Looks like the family is there. They're getting ready to come to the microphone, so we'll listen in. Okay.
She was the type of person that could just light up a room.
The principal who, God bless her, lost her life, was just a very special person. And all the parents knew that.
Wolf Blitzer, CNN, Newtown, Connecticut.
How young was and this magnificent thing. Anything else on there? No, sir. No. And that'll be distributed. Hope we got enough copies. Everybody, death was caused by, everyone that we've completed so far was caused by gunshot wounds. And obviously the manner of death on all these cases has been classified as homicide. How many medical examiners working today, sir? I have 4 doctors and, I think all 10 of my technicians, both the full-timers and part-timers were there. And 1 student.
My daughter Natalie was interested in asking him if he could pass some kind of legislation so that the only people that had guns were military personnel and law enforcement, and if people needed guns for sport, that they could go to a range and the guns would have to stay there.
They were hoping that President Obama would hear her words tonight if we could get them read on air. So she gave me a letter, and unfortunately there were too many people at the wake for me to get up to actually see the family, so the letter was passed back to me.
Okay.
But this is what she wrote, and if you could read it, because I can't.
Okay. But the family gave permission.
The family wants, they told me to bring it to you.
Okay. It says, my name is Natalie Barden, and I wanted to tell the president that only police officers and the military should get guns. If people want to do it as a sport, then they could go to a shooting range, and the guns would not be able to leave there. So that's what she wants President Obama to hear.
She wants, yeah, this is what the question she wanted to ask him.
Stunning fakery in the alleged chemical weapons attack, according to a former UK ambassador. Coming up.
The British Broadcasting Corporation is accused of staging chemical weapons attack. The CIA admits planting CNN reporters. And international lawyers call for journalists inciting violence to be expelled.
August 2013, and NATO leaders can't get the public on side for the imminent bombing of Syria. Suddenly, the BBC says it was filming a small rural hospital, and a game-changing atrocity happens right there, the moment they were filming.
We were filming the doctors working at this hospital when victims of an incendiary bomb attack on a school playground started pouring in.
Absolute chaos and carnage here. It must be some sort of napalm.
But a highly skeptical public stayed hostile to military intervention. Exactly 1 month later, the leaders are trying to pin a chemical weapons attack on Syria without success. The BBC airs exactly the same footage, but digitally alters the word napalm for, quote, chemical weapons, hoping no one will notice.
Absolute chaos and carnage here. It must be some sort of chemical weapon.
Not only did folks notice, but it unleashed a massive public investigation, which made some extremely disturbing findings.
This is the total fabrication. From beginning to end of an atrocity with BBC reporter Ian Pannell standing amidst a tableau of very bad actors. This is completely beyond the pale.
This audio analysis by media investigator Robin Upton shows both versions are identical and from the same speech. The BBC then digitally altered the words from napalm to chemical weapon, the exact justification NATO was finding difficult to prove. That game-changing allegation was made by 2 doctors that had travelled with the BBC, who claimed the number of sudden casualties is, quote, overwhelming. What kind of doctor, notes media investigator Robert Stewart, gives interviews when she is surrounded by supposedly seriously burned and dying teenagers?
Get anyone who isn't a patient out of here.
When a nurse does finally start to help, her order to get anyone who isn't a patient out of here doesn't apply to the cameramen. Even worse, notes Stewart, is the bizarre acting which starts when the man in the center gives the sign.
What do you need to see? We're just human beings. We want to live, you know? Isn't it our right to live?
Dr. Roller, on whose sole claim the BBC sends napalm chemical weapons allegations around the world, is actually the daughter of Syrian rebel Musa al-Qadi. The parallel to the Gulf War and nurse Naira is stunning. Congressman said the nurse's tearful testimony that Iraqis were killing children swung their vote in favor of war.
Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
Nurse Naira became the mainstream's darling, but once the vote had safely passed, she admitted inventing the whole thing and was actually the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to Washington, lying to get the public to back war. UK Member of Parliament George Galloway joins us. Thank you very much for coming on. Why do we get almost identical claims before each war, which then prove lies?
Well, the Bush and Blair Corporation, as it became in the run-up to the Iraq War, has almost entirely lost its reputation for journalistic integrity. A full inquiry must be launched into why the BBC used a piece of material which was not just wrong, but was falsified, and falsified with the purpose of propelling our country into war. That's not what the British public pays its BBC license fee for, so that it can be tricked into a war.
In a statement, the British Broadcasting Corporation says it stands by its report. The Syrian opposition denies the allegations. Investigators such as Robert Stewart note there are many questions sent officially to the corporation remain unanswered. There are also numerous such precedents, both in this war and previous invasions. Brilliant is how a top Western official called tricking the public through routine faking of atrocities and commonly aired on mainstream bulletins. Nightly news shows just a few cases of what happened next after mainstream cameras ended their reports.
It shows people putting on, fake wounds. It shows there's some guys there. Look, there's their head wounds. Peace, everybody. We're doing the right thing. We're creating fake propaganda. I mean, it's not even real atrocities. So they're there lined up. There was another video. It shows some guy kicking his leg and with a fake blood wound. Here's a guy who wakes up from his funeral. Watch this. They're reading. Oh, there. Oh, wait. There. Oh, he's awake. He's not even really dead. And so, I mean, this is just crazy what goes on. There was another video that was shot of a supposed massacre, and it cuts. You don't see the whole thing. When you go to the Al Jazeera footage, it shows real quick clips of a guy kicking his leg, and he's got blood coming out, which turned out to be fake blood.
The so-called activists behind the fakes are by far the most popular source, despite them never being verified and regularly disproved as fabrications to justify more NATO arms. The term activist may sound like a well-meaning Western campaigner or charity, but the Foreign Policy Journal notes it's just newspeak for insurgents. The official source on Syria casualties, or what mainstream claims is official, is impressive-sounding organization the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Reuters exposed the fact 3 years ago it was not an organization at all, or even working in Syria. It's a single pro-insurgent supporter living in Coventry, England. Here pictured at the Foreign Office after instructions from Britain's Foreign Minister himself. In leaked footage, ordinary Syrians told the BBC they're tired of its lies and the insurgents they're cheerleading are a tiny minority led by foreign gangs.
You don't like BBC? BBC كله. Why? سيء. لا يعني BBC سيء. Because you are talking very bad about Syria. Everybody when BBC Arabic he can hear the lie about Syria. Al Jazeera and Arabia.
But maybe Syria is like any country. Some people support and some people don't
everybody
support.
support.
So Syria is different.
There is very little people. Maybe 10,000 like that. But the most of people, 22 million, 23 million persons support Bashar al-Assad.
But even
and we have not demonstration, we have armed gangs.
Pro-war media is forced to resort to colossal lies since intelligence chiefs revealed to America's top investigative reporter, Cy Hirsch, quote, Obama's cronies are making it up. All the evidence actually points to the jihadis staging the chemical attacks.
The attack was not the result of the current regime, the high-level intelligence officer wrote in an email to a colleague. The guys are throwing their hands in the air and saying, how can we help this guy, Obama, when he and his cronies in the White House make up the intelligence as they go along, said a former senior intelligence official. The distortion, he said, reminded him of the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
What?
The president wants a white one.
He wants a white one? A white? Let me talk.
He's mobilizing his 6th fleet.
The thought a US president would start a horrific foreign war by staging a pretty female front as a victim made people laugh.
The young Albanian national fleeing in this video is attempting to escape terrorist reprisals in her village.
Meet Julia, if that's her real name, the celebrated face mass media call the creator of a viral video asking the US to help Ukraine. It was actually created by the State Department's National Endowment for Democracy to mask the fact Washington joined Ukraine's thugs and murdered their way to power. A leaked phone call with EU Foreign Minister Ashton revealed the opposition planned and executed the infamous sniper violence of Kiev, shooting both the police and their own supporters in the back. Study found a total of 250 mainstream sources lied that the snipers belonged to Yanukovych. Only 7 of the entire mass media even mentioned the bombshell leak, and those that did framed the report to suggest it couldn't possibly be true. Former Wall Street Journal editor Paul Craig Roberts calls the coverage of Ukraine a new low in the history of the mainstream, which is now simply what he describes as a ministry of lies. Investigative reporter John Helmers uncovered the mainstream staging demonstrations and attempts to provoke disorder. He joins us. Great to speak to you. One US scholar notes the coverage has now become Orwellian. What's going on?
So the weaker your government, the more interested the leader might be in threatening Russia to look strong at home when it's obvious he's not strong at home and couldn't get re-elected. That's particularly true, let's say, of the French president or the Prime Minister Cameron at the moment. And arguably, President Obama is not only a lame duck, but having great difficulty in putting together a winning coalition for the Democratic Party's next candidate for president. When you've got weak political leaders, you need to look stronger than you are in public opinion in the media. So there's this process of misleading and disinforming.
The Senate committee inquiry revealed CIA running mainstream media in the vast operation known as Mockingbird. More than 400 journalists and media chiefs claiming to watchdog the government, with the exact opposite joining to mask US government crime at home and abroad. The operation continues despite agency denials. Counterpunch discovered CIA imposing agents on firms like CNN. Former CIA exec Michael Sher notes British media are even closer to intel targets.
Big pieces of wood, metal, to use as barricades.
Sher adds the BBC now takes the lead in regime change operations that cause, quote, anarchy and violence. Let's speak to Francis Boyle, Professor of International Law at Illinois University. Great to talk to you. How can nations stop war media that now perform the CIA's covert operations?
Certainly have their visas revoked and sent packing home, because I really don't understand why some of these countries keep, European journalists, certainly in the United States, why they let them into the countries, because they're just using their coverage to promote war and military intervention at home. In addition, Bush Jr. administration lifted what was supposed to be the previous prohibition that intelligence agents were not supposed to infiltrate the media. You know, you have to be very careful, certainly dealing with U.S. reporters, whether or not they're intelligence agents.
Banning active units of the military, also known as war stream media, shows how serious the situation now is. Their policies aren't popular with their own viewers. Mainstream audiences are in freefall. CNN and MSNBC have shed half their entire viewership in the last year alone. The question is, how many more coups will they stage or help before they lose the public's trust altogether? Seek truth from facts. This is The Truth Seeker.
This is James Wright Foley, an American citizen of your country.
So it's important to draw awareness. There was three Western photographers killed in Lydia. Tim Hetherington is represented, as well as Chris Hondos in this auction.
Other cities, what are you hearing outside of Benghazi?
We just heard from an eyewitness that Ashdabia is continued to be shelled and bombed today.
And, of course, the deaths in Syria, Marie Colvin and Remy Ochik. So, with the Arab Spring, we've seen terrible costs for freelancers, and we were with Anton.
Fire, and there's no feeling to show him any mercy. One man said, we don't trust him. He has to get to the no-fly zone.
I call on you, John,
Think about who made the decision to bomb Iraq recently and kill those people, whoever they may have been. Think, John, who did they really kill? And did they think about me, you, our family when they made that decision?
So Jim had a big heart, and you know, that's what we shared with President Obama. You know, we just pray that Jim's death can bring our country together.
His parents, John and Diane Foley, join me in just a moment.
Well, there were two witnesses to, you know, there was Jim's driver and his translator who were let go. So they were the ones who told us who had captured him and that he had been captured at gunpoint.
Did they know he was a journalist?
The people who captured him seemed to know he was a journalist.
We don't know that for sure.
We don't know that for sure.
Now, Phil Balboni says the Assad government has completely denied this, that they have no involvement, they do not know of his whereabouts. But from what I can glean from what Phil Balboni told us, he believes that it is the Assad regime and likely not the jihadists. Do you believe that?
Well, it's certainly possible. I think Diane and I would like to keep all possibilities open. We certainly haven't had any contact yet, despite major efforts. So I think we're pretty much assured that he's in Syria, but we don't know where exactly or held by whom.
And so we spent a long time perfecting a new look for Owen. Before each interview, the best artist spent 4 hours thoroughly changing his appearance. We've used shadows to enhance the effect, and we've altered his voice.
You're in disguise as we do this interview today, and I wonder why.
The focus shouldn't be on me. The focus should be on the book.
Jimmy had said in Libya, and we're very sure now, that he could feel the prayers, and we think his strength came from God. Strength came.
Family, a large extended family, a couple little ones running around the house. There's a lot of distractions, but there's just been an outpouring of support.
This mother, Diane Downs, shot her kids at close range, drove them to the hospital while they bled all over the car, claimed a scraggy-haired stranger did it, and you'll see when you see the video, she can't even pretend to be an agonizing mother. If you look closely, you'll see duping delight throughout this video.
But at night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christy reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth. And that, maybe it'll fade too with time, but I don't think so. That haunts me the most.
Intelligence agencies have infiltrated and created some satanic groups, with the resurgence of these groups beginning in 1966, particularly with the birth of the Church of Satan, founded by Anton LaVey. LaVey studied criminology in San Francisco and worked in the San Francisco Police Department Crime Lab. He also worked as an informant for Interpol. Prior to the Church of Satan, LaVey ran a group called the Magic Circle. LaVey's most famous associate is the National Security Agency General Michael Aquino. At the time of his membership in LaVey's group, Aquino was an Army specialist in intelligence and psychological warfare. In the late 1980s, Aquino was accused by the San Francisco Police Department of being involved in a satanic child molestation ring centered on the daycare at the Presidio military base where Aquino was stationed at the time. It is important to remember that General Aquino is first and foremost a military intelligence officer with over 40 years' experience in counterinsurgency operations and an expert in psychological warfare. General Aquino's psychological warfare campaign has started or infiltrated cults and other closed systems as part of a concerted effort to control large numbers of people and to destabilize the centers of constitutional and legal authority, both here in the United States and in other nations.
Talking to Dr. Aquino and his wife, you are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army.
Correct.
Now, and how does the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
The Army has known about my religion for the entire span of my Army career, which began in 1968. And there was a reasonable amount of curiosity, as there has been all the way along, with what exactly is this strange and unusual thing. And I've talked about it in much the same way that I've talked here today on your show about it. And other than that, the Army has paid very little attention to it, the same as it would to anybody who was, say, a follower of Hinduism or of Buddhism or any other slightly unusual religion today.
So you just go about your Army duties and it's fine and okay?
I was a follower of the Satanist Church in Chicago here. On Walpurgis Nacht, I was the head acolyte for that specific ceremony, and at the end of it, we wound up murdering someone. And
a person?
Yes, ma'am. It wasn't anybody that I knew, and I reported it. But once I reported it and decided that to quit the Satanist Church, I started receiving threatening phone calls. People would come up to my door who I didn't know, and all they'd do is say, go back to the church, and then they'd walk away. They'd never give me their name or address or anything. I received threatening mail. My mail was opened. My little sister was harassed coming to and from school several times.
So what happened in the ritual where someone was murdered? And how were they murdered?
They were stabbed 7 times with knives because...
In Chicago?
Yes. It was...
What year?
About 8 years ago. So it was about 80, 81. And the ritual was a witch's Sabbath, and it got out of hand, and the high priest brought out these 7 daggers, and they impaled him in the form of a cross with the 7 daggers.
Was this person impaled against his or her will?
Yes.
Or did they wish to be sacrificed?
No, this was against his will. But
so how did you know you weren't going to be pulled in and impaled?
That's why that's one of the reasons why I got out of the church. And the other reason why I got out of the church was mentally I had a nervous breakdown after that, and I just mentally could not handle it.
How do you explain that?
My first question would be, were you a member of the Church of Satan, a card-carrying member of the Church of Satan?
Yes, sir.
And who was the grotto leader?
I don't remember his name.
You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Not anymore, no.
Were you prosecuted?
Like I said, I had a nervous breakdown, and I have partial amnesia, specifically about that night. The only thing I really remember about that night itself is that I walked in, I got my acolyte robes on, and the next thing I remember seeing was this guy laying on the table with 7 daggers sticking out of his chest.
Did you participate in the stabbing of the guy?
I don't remember.
You have made several statements that don't fit with the Church of Satan. For example, there is only one high priest. There is not a local one. We do not have any rituals.
Only one high priest. Is that you?
That for the Church of Satan was Anton LaVey. Now, it has no rituals called a witch's Sabbath, per se. It certainly does not have any ritual murder activities. And it has no title called acolyte at all. A person who is a first-degree member in the Church of Satan is referred to as a Satanist. And there are no titles such as that at all. Furthermore, I found...
So you're telling him he's lying?
I'm telling him he's lying. I'm saying that he has given us statements in great detail concerning events that took place, but he has not named a single name, nor is there any record, as far as I'm aware from what he said, that the police investigated.
I do remember several of the names of the people there.
Did you tell them to the police?
Yes, I gave those names to the police, but I refused to name them on national television for 2 reasons. One, they might not like it and come after me again. And that scares the hell out of me.
Don't you think that they already know that you are talking about them here right now?
They may know that they may know that.
Wait a minute, how could they know that? How do they know that? Because they're watching or because they just sort of feel it?
The same reason that he would...
Legitimate question. That's a legitimate question, yeah.
If he is talking about events right now on your show and he's afraid that those people may be watching it, he would in fact place himself in greater danger by not identifying them right now than he would by allowing them to retain their anonymity and then perhaps to continue persecuting or threatening him.
Can I ask you something? What happened to this victim, and were you ever prosecuted by the police, and did they investigate?
No, I wasn't prosecuted because I was the one that went to the police. I was the only one that went to the police. The police went to the cemetery where we had that ritual, and they found the altar and a lot of the blood and some of the trappings, but they never found the body or anybody else in the coven.
What did you do with the body?
I left. I got out of there. When I realized that this guy on the altar was dead, I just
You murdered a person and then just turned and walked away? And the police said, well, as long as you talk to us about it, it's okay, but we won't...
I don't know if I was involved in the actual ritual itself.
You told us that you killed a person yourself.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
What I said was that the murder happened at it, and I was there. I don't know...
He doesn't remember if he actually stabbed them or not. You wanted to say what?
Intelligence agencies have infiltrated and created some satanic groups, with the resurgence of these groups beginning in 1966, particularly with the birth of the Church of Satan, founded by Anton LaVey. LaVey studied criminology in San Francisco and worked in the San Francisco Police Department Crime Lab. He also worked as an informant for Interpol. Prior to the Church of Satan, LaVey ran a group called the Magic Circle. LaVey's most famous associate is the National Security Agency General Michael Aquino. At the time of his membership in LaVey's group, Aquino was an Army specialist in intelligence and psychological warfare. In 1973, he became the executive officer of the 306th Psychological Operations Battalion, contemporary with his founding of the Church of Set. General Michael Aquino wrote, "From PSYOP to Mind War, the Psychology of Victory." Aquino's thesis stated that enemy populations could be subdued by inflicting a state of psychological terror and feelings of imminent destruction. He discusses the use of psychotronic weapons or electromagnetic weapons that influence the mind. Capitulation could be induced without firing a shot by extremely low frequency signals piggybacked on broadcasts of radio, TV, or microwave communications in order to influence and manipulate the thoughts and feelings of the target population. During the 1960s, he was prominent in the Church of Satan and a close friend of Anton LaVey, until he started his own Church of Set. A police intelligence report dated July 1, 1981, reads, quote, "The Church of Set is a group of hundreds of members that operates on a national level. Michael Aquino is the official head and rules through a council of 9, who are in fact his lieutenants," unquote. At least 2 members of the Council of 9 at that time were members of Army intelligence. In the late 1980s, Aquino was accused by the San Francisco Police Department of being involved in a satanic child molestation ring centered on the daycare at the Presidio military base where Aquino was stationed at the time. Probable victims numbered at 68, many of whom had contracted venereal disease. 22 families filed $66 million in claims against the Army, claiming that criminal charges against Michael Aquino were dropped due to pressure from the Army. General Aquino admitted to renting the German castle where the Nazi SS were formed and reenacting the secret ceremony among fellow intelligence officers dressed in full Nazi regalia. It is important to remember that General Aquino is first and foremost a military intelligence officer with over 40 years' experience in counterinsurgency operations and an expert in psychological warfare. General Aquino's psychological warfare campaign has started or infiltrated cults and other closed systems as part of a concerted effort to control large numbers of people and to destabilize the centers of constitutional and legal authority, both here in the United States and in other nations. This methodology is part of a concerted plan that spans several generations. The Church of Satan and the Church of Set, as well as other cults and mainstream organizations, are closed systems. Aquino first participated in MKUltra related activities in Vietnam as part of the Phoenix program in the 1960s. These ongoing MKUltra operations are functioning as a counterinsurgency and infiltration operation aimed at destabilizing the United States and other industrialized nations. The following cults have been used by General Aquino or his associates to continue MKUltra operations outside of the laboratory. The mass suicides at Jonestown of 890 people had similar threads, a cult with sinister connections. Jim Jones, who had connections to the CIA, set up his utopian experiment on the same land the CIA had used to train mercenaries to fight in Angola. According to investigators, the Jonestown experiment was conceived of by Dr. Lawrence Laird Layton, staffed by him and financed by Layton. The African-American cult had at its core a Caucasian inner council composed of Layton and his family. Layton was a chemist in the Manhattan Project and head of the Army's Chemical Warfare Research Division in the 1950s. The People's Temple cult took over the Mendocino State Hospital as a part of a government pilot project to evaluate the feasibility of deinstitutionalizing mental patients. After a reduction in state funding, most of the patients at the Mendocino State Psychiatric Hospital were released into the custody of the People's Temple. Congressman Leo Ryan was assassinated in his attempt to investigate the cult. The pathologist in Guyana reported 80 to 90% of the victims' bodies had fresh needle marks. Other victims had been shot or strangled. In 1981, the survivors sued the former head of the CIA for, quote, enhancing the economic and...
Ted Gunderson, FBI veteran, former head of the regional office in Los Angeles. Is there a network of these satanic murderers in this country, do you allege?
I cannot say that there's a network of satanic murderers. I can say that based on information furnished to me by confidential sources and informants, based on interviews with dozens of survivors from the satanic operations through the years, satanic beliefs, etc., I can say that there is a network of these people across the country who are very active. They have their own rest and relaxation farm. They are in contact with each other. It ties in loosely to the drug operation, ties into motorcycle gangs, and it goes on and on. They have their own people who specialize in surveillances and photography and in assassinations.